I'd like to talk to you today, explain a bit about how we at Souktel have leveraged basic mobile phone technology to facilitate election monitoring in Tunisia, in Libya, and Ahmed already spoke about Egypt, but we've done a little bit of work in Egypt as well. Okay, just a brief overview of who we are at Souktel. We were founded in 2006. We are a group of Palestinians, Americans, and Canadians. We're based in Ramallah, Palestine. And we operate in 15 countries now, as Sharif mentioned. We create highly customized mobile platforms, which are both web and phone accessible. And in partnership with mobile operators across the MENA region, we've leveraged basic mobile phone technology to implement health, civil society and governance projects, emergency response projects, et cetera, et cetera. So why mobile phones? Well, we at Souktel, we emerged from a perceived need to connect aid organizations with vulnerable populations. So what's the best way of doing this? What's the best way to get information to and from communities in need? And as you can see from mobile phone subscription and penetration rates, nearly everybody has a mobile phone, right? And if you compare that with current internet penetration rates, I know that people, I'm sure Facebook in particular likes to attribute the Egyptian revolution to their services, but I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is that most people have a mobile phone, and really only a third of people, especially in the developing world, have consistent access to internet. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, we have 4 services that we provide to facilitate election monitoring, and I'm going to talk in more detail about those as I go through the presentation and talk a little bit about our case studies. The first service that we have is an SMS alert service. So let's say that you want to send out messages about what the voter registration process is, or you want to promote a national dialogue event that you want people to attend, or well, those are just some of the examples that you could send we call them bulk alerts, bulk SMS alerts, to segmented lists of beneficiaries. We also have SMS and IVR surveys, so you can conduct opinion polls, you can get real-time feedback from citizens. What is their take on, I'll talk about this when I discuss Libya. What are their thoughts on the elections? And the third service that we do is, we call it an audio library service. So we can set up a hotline where, especially illiterate users, can call into this hotline, and ideally it would be a reverse charge setup so that they don't have to pay to use the service. That's the ideal situation. So they would call into this hotline, and using a touch-tone menu, they would be able to select a variety of pre-recorded audio lessons. So we implemented this, and it was a pretty big success in Somalia. And we implemented this across all 3 regions. So involved a bit of work with the various mobile operators in Puntland and Somaliland, South Central Sudan. It was very time intensive, but it was pretty awesome. People could call in, and if they wanted to hear more information about the constitution writing process, call in. The touch-tone menu is, please select 1 if you would like to hear more about the drafting process. So then they would call in, they'd press 1, and they would hear this pre-recorded message. And finally, the electoral incidents database allows citizens to text in on election day. They would be able to text into this number. And again, ideally, it would be a reverse charge. So they're not going to, either they're going to pay the standard rate of a text message, or yani balash, nothing at all. So in Tunisia, in October 2011, we partnered with the American Bar Association and the Tunisian Bar Association. And we created a very customized web platform that enabled citizens to, as I mentioned, to text into this hotline, and they could report incidents of electoral fraud. What was really cool about this, though, was that all messages that came into the system, and I'll show you an illustration of this in a second, all the messages that came in were then tagged, classified according to level of importance, or lawyers could also view the responses and tag them according to geographic region, if they wanted to. And then the lawyers that they had access to this web platform, they could respond immediately to these complaints. And they would claim them too. So you don't want, we had a team, I believe it was 80 lawyers that were working on this. So they would view incoming responses, and they not only would classify the responses, but they would also claim them. You wouldn't want more than one lawyer following up on the same incident, right? You would want, each one would claim one, say, okay, I'm gonna work on this, and they'd be able to follow up accordingly. So I have a little illustration of how this worked. So Souktel works to set up connectivity. So we set up the hotline, we work with mobile operators in the country. As I mentioned, we ideally would not want citizens to have to pay to use the service. Once we establish connectivity, there are multiple ways of promoting the service. One way is to send out, as I said, a promotional alert. So an SMS blast to however many thousands of numbers you can get. You can send a promotional alert, as I've mentioned here. Notice anything strange during the elections, send an SMS to 35353 to report any incident you witness on election day. You can also leverage traditional media outlets. You can use radio, you can reach out to TV stations and advertise this number so that people can text in on election day. So that's step one, is getting the information out there that people can use this service. Okay, step two. And I've alluded to this already, but once people start texting into the system, those messages are available on the web platform. So the team of lawyers has real-time access to reports coming in. I believe they received about 1,000 in total. And so there was a team of 80 lawyers. They could respond immediately to those messages. And something else I want to stress is that only the mobile number is available. So you still want to preserve that level of anonymity. You don't want people to feel like they're going to be persecuted for reporting an incident of election fraud. So I think that's key, that people feel they can participate in the electoral process in a way that they feel is safe, they feel protected. And so this is an illustration then of, I don't know how clear that is or if you can read any, that's basically the message, the reporting panel. So you can see the time the message comes in, the outgoing reply, they generally get like a thank you for responding, we'll look into this. And there will be a way, the platform is customized in a way that lawyers can indicate whether or not they've responded to the complaint yet. And as I said, they can claim it so that only one lawyer is responding to one complaint. You wouldn't want like people not wasting their time, but you wouldn't want like 3 lawyers responding to the same complaint. You want to wait. If there's so many responses coming in, you want to deal with that as time effectively as possible. Okay, and in the instance where they do need to follow up with the respondent, to follow up with the mobile user, they can do that. They can then call the person to get more information, what exactly happened at the polling station, where exactly are you? So, and you can see here I have the cycle sort of here. So you have a person who texts in, I tried to register to vote, but the election official will not put me on the list. That message is received. You can view it in the web platform. And then if the need arises, lawyers can reach out directly to those people. So that was Tunisia in 2011. A second project we did in partnership with Al Jazeera was in the lead up to the elections on July 7th of 2012. Al Jazeera wanted to get frank and honest feedback from citizens in Libya. And so the question they asked was, Al Jazeera would like to know, will you take part in the July 7th elections and why? What do you hope to achieve? And this was really, for a lot of Libyans, the first time that they could safely, and again, without fear of persecution, contribute to a healthy debate about, about the elections. So Al Jazeera ended up getting 5,000 responses from citizens. And as you can see, we were able to create a way to map responses for them. So if you were to hover over one of these dots, you can see the response, as well as if the person chooses, if they choose to put their name and location, they could do that as well. And only if people responded with their location could it obviously be put on a map. But again, I want to stress that this is another way to safely contribute to the national dialogue in a way that people didn't feel like they were going to be hounded down later. And we did, I know Ahmed touched on their work in Egypt. What we did in Egypt, targeting mainly women and youth, and this is also in 2012, is really a hodgepodge of all these services that we provide, we provided in Egypt. So targeting specifically women and youth, we sent informational alerts to inform them about the voting process, the registration process. We can provide informational alerts, can be either SMS, or we also have the option of doing voice technology for you, voice response technology. So, for example, they could either text into a hotline, they would either receive an SMS informational alert. There's even a way to send a voice message to call a list of people, and they would receive a voice message instead of a text message. Again, if you're trying to target illiterate communities. We also implemented an SMS opinion and surveys component. And the idea there was to hear back from 60,000, the target was 60,000 women and youth to get their feedback on the electoral process. And finally, as in Tunisia, we provided a text-in hotline for people to report electoral fraud and any sort of irregularities. Well, thank you for your time.